Okay, just a second. Today we will have a few presenters. Ana Lucia and Josep, could you just briefly introduce yourself, and then we will save this time later during when your turn for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Valentina. Good morning to everybody, and thanks for joining. I am Ana Lucia Jaramillo. I'm part of the legal team of Corvers Procurement Services. This is a legal consultancy firm specialized in innovation procurement and based in the Netherlands. We are also the contractor for the European Assistance for Innovation Procurement, and so we have assisted more than 26 PCPs and PPIs, and we are involved in several European projects, also in innovation procurement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ana Lucia. And you, Joseph?
Thank you, Valentina. My name is Josef Kubinec. I'm from Slovakia, Bratislava, representing the International Security Management Institute. And my role is I'm a public procurement specialist, focusing mostly on the security sector, on innovation procurement, but not only that, also the professionalization. So I'm looking forward for our webinar today.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And myself, Valentina Schipper-Shopejko. I'm coordinator of the Urban Agenda Partnership on Innovative and Responsible Public Procurement and chair of Eurocities Working Group Public Procurement, working for Municipality of Haarlem, the Netherlands. And today I'm also moderating this session as well. Very happy to see you all. Very welcome on this wonderful morning, and I hope you will enjoy this webinar on practical aspects of pre-commercial procurement. And today we will focus more in depth on how can public authorities benefit from climate services by Joseph, EFIP step-by-step methodology, how to successfully prepare innovation procurement, and also practical examples on the climate services and lessons learned and recommendations. So now, just a few housekeeping rules. As Melissa already mentioned, workshop will be recorded. So if you don't want to be in the picture, just turn off your camera. Please ensure you're muted to avoid extra noise on the background. Use a raise hand function to signal you would like to say something or to ask a question. If possible, if you wish, please turn on your video so we can also see you. And last but not least, use chat function to share your questions or suggestions. And now I would like to give a word to Joseph Kubinec from ISME. Joseph, floor is yours.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you much, Valentina. So briefly, this webinar is organized within the Protect project, and within the Protect project, we look at 5 application domains where climate services based on Earth observation can be beneficial to the public buyers. And we are also analyzing possibility of doing the PCP in this application domain. So firstly, in this webinar, I'm going to briefly define what does it mean, these application domains, as we see it in a Protect project. I will give some examples because it's always good to see and understand the problematic based on the examples, and then I will look a little bit more in the civil security and protection, as this is my main field. So please, Valentina, next slide. First, we will look at marine and coastal environment and possibilities of using climate services in this domain. So definitely we can define the marine aquatic environments as the one with high level of dissolved salt. These would include also open ocean, deep sea ocean, and coastal marine ecosystems. And climate services rely on Earth observation in this domain for precise nowcasting and forecasting, informing ocean weather algorithms and monitoring parameters influencing water quality. Please, next slide. And now the example. And I think most of you definitely heard about these examples. So one example in this domain would be marine pollution monitoring. SRI-based and optical satellite data can be used for detecting and monitoring of oil spills and marine litter. And Earth observation also provides forecast of sea currents, sea surface heights, sea surface salinity, sea surface temperature, ocean color, sea ice data. So we see there are really various applications of climate services in this domain. And as I mentioned, I believe many of you heard about oil spills from the tankers. So really the climate services based on Earth observation can be useful in detecting and then monitoring this kind of oil spills. Okay, please, another one. We have the energy and utilities also within our Protect project. These would include all activities related to water supply, sewage services, electricity, dams, and natural gas. Climate services rely on Earth observation data for forecasting and nowcasting, planning, optimization of renewable energy, onshore and offshore wind, solar, tidal, and wave, and monitoring strategic for the utilities sector infrastructure. Now, can we go to the example? And well, this is a little bit other than we had before. We can use the climate services in environmental impact assessment of energy and mineral resource plant. Earth observation can support the mitigation of energy mining effects of the environment through continuous monitoring of relevant environmental characteristics and through the capacity of Earth observation to detect changes. Relevant products and services include coastal ecosystem monitoring, water quality monitoring, air quality monitoring, erosion monitoring, pollution monitoring, vegetation monitoring. And what I can say is that we, within our project, already identify some use scenarios, some cases. For example, we will look into more details if Earth observation is now already capable of identifying, for example, pollutions of water and fresh water. So we will go deeper also within this domain, and stay with us if you want to learn more about that. Thank you, Valentina. Can we go to another domain? Sustainable urban communities. I mean, all of us, we are living in some kind of a communities. For us, within the Protect project, green and sustainable urban communities operate their human, natural, and financial capital with the goal to meet current and future needs in a sustainable manner while prioritizing a long-term perspective. Climate services rely, sorry, can we go back? And here, the climate services rely on observation data for assessing and forecasting air quality, pollen concentration, and assisting urban planning and operation. Now, please to the example. We all would like to live in in a good environment, and important part of this is obviously air quality monitoring. We can use the satellite data really, and also together with in situ measurements to support detecting, collecting, and interpreting information on multitude of air pollutants. That's one example. Other example would be using the climate services to create heat maps for the cities, and this will is helping the cities to really plan the infrastructure, where to buy, where to build new buildings, in which way it should be built, or where to introduce more green, for example, the trees and parks. Thank you. Another one, please. The fourth very important domain, includes agriculture, forestry, and other land uses. These would include crops, forest, animals, and microorganisms. And climate services here using the Earth observation can contribute to more optimized and sustainable exploitation of the land. So this is based on precision agriculture, natural resources management, as well as counter the growing challenges related to climate crisis. And now the concrete example would be on another slide. And that's in this domain, this is a carbon capture and content assessment. We can monitor using the Earth observation the agriculture vegetation and the grassland cover through, as I mentioned, Earth observation, and this can help inform carbon sink capacity of different terrains. Thank you. Another slide.
Shall I share the screen with the video?
Well, if possible, we can look at another video, which will be on another slide. So just we keep track over the time. And now the civil security and protection. Here you can see definition. What does it mean, civil security? But really, in civil security, the observation data, we can use it to feed our systems for monitoring extreme events, which are more and more present in nowadays. And this can help also or be connected with sending automatic events to civil authorities. And please, another slide. And I'm not sure if you knew, but Earth observation capabilities are used in response to emergency management situations such as drought, earthquake, extreme temperatures, flood, landslide, mass movement, storm, volcanic activity. And all these applications can be used in different times of the civil security and emergency management. So really from the beginning, from the preparedness phase and early warning to rapid mapping and post-event analysis. On the other side, other slide, we will see in more details. So you here you see different uh, stages of let's say disaster risk management situation and emergency responses. Really, so for example, in the stage of preparedness, prevention, risk reduction, and recovery phases, we use Earth observation to provide risk assessment and simulation model. So this is really before the situation happens. In a stage of early warning, we can provide continuous observation and forecast for many types of disasters, such as flooding. So that would be based on modeling earthquakes, landslides, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and wildfires. When the disaster already happened, so we can use Earth observation uh, for the rapid mapping, allowing emergency responses to be coordinated as efficiently as possible. And we will see in the next slide the example of rapid mapping. And here it is. So this is example for what we can use Earth observation and climate services in a civil security. This is the picture from the ESA, and so they did floods monitoring and rapid mapping in 2013. There were huge floods in Central Europe, um, and maps based on the satellite data help emergency service plan to respond to such events. This was done through the Copernicus Emergency Management Service, and together 118 maps were produced to assist the flood relief. So this is the one real example how we can use the observation and climate services in a civil security field. Now, if we have time, there is a video.
Just a second, I will share another screen.
Yes, thank you. So this video will show you this concrete example of using the Earth observation and our European services So the Copernicus system on rapid mapping of floods, which help to coordinate our response in this case of disasters. So this is without the sound, so don't worry. Okay, we cannot see the video now.
Can you see the screen?
We can see the screen. Yes,
Okay.
now.
Yes.
Amazing, now it goes. So this is without the sound, so just read.
Really impressive to see it, Joseph.
Yes, I have the same opinion, and what we can see and understand, and this is actually from the year 2013, but we know that there were massive floods in Germany a couple of years ago. I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm afraid these kind of events will be more often, and at least, I mean, using the climate services and Earth observation, our crisis management unit, can prepare the plans and really use this rapid mapping for planning of our services. There is another one example, and that's the last one, and this is really the recent one. That you can see this is the picture from the Turkey-Syria earthquakes that happened a month ago. So what was and how the climate services were used in this really massive disaster. So the application was that by combining Earth observation assets from different space agencies, so there was not only the European one, and using the charter on space and major disasters, they were able to provide satellite images of the affected areas to define the extent of the disasters and support local teams with their rescue efforts. More than 350 crisis images were delivered, and they can be used to generate damage and situation maps to help estimate the hazard impact and manage relief actions in affected areas. But not only that, I mean, there are different applications that this kind of services can be used in this type of disasters. So thank you. I believe this is my last example.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation, Joseph. I would love to give a word to Ana Lucia from Carvers. Ana Lucia, please.
Thank you very much, Valentina. I have the pleasure to present the IAFIP methodology. That's the step-by-step guidance for innovation procurement to see how you can successfully prepare an innovation procurement. And we can go to the next slide. I have an agenda prepared for you. We going to have an introduction to innovation procurement and its two modalities, that's PCP, pre-commercial procurement, and public procurement of innovative solutions. We'll look into the IAFIP step-by-step before, during, and after the procurement, and we'll focus on the preparatory steps with some examples. These are 5 preparatory steps, and we will go finally to some conclusions. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll start with a poll question. So I just want to know if you have participated in an innovation procurement project, if you can have your phone and look into the QR code, and we will be here. You can, let's say,
I just stopped sharing so you can share the Mentimeter results.
yes, I am going to share the screen now so you can see it. Let's see if participants come in and can vote. Don't see any votes yet.
So if it was very short time in order to
Okay.
to fill in the code,
Yeah.
so just look at the code above the screen, 72498892.
Correct. Okay, so we have some yes and some no. So I think, yeah, okay, more participants who have not been in an innovation procurement project. Okay, so now we will see, okay, some yes. I get a little bit more time. Otherwise, we can pass because time is very important for us now, Valentina. So let's move now to the next presentation. Okay, so I see more people who have not participated in innovation procurement project. Great. I'm going to stop sharing for now. So let's see if you can share the presentation again, Valentina. That would be great. Thank you very much. So to start with, let's understand what is innovation procurement, what is pre-commercial procurement and public procurement of innovative solutions. So innovation procurement happens when the public buyers acquire the development or the deployment of pioneering innovative solutions to address a specific mid to long-term public sector needs. I think somebody has the microphone. Thank you. So what we have in innovation procurement in the taxonomy, we have two different procedures. Pre-commercial procurement, that is the procurement of R&D, so research and development services. And in this case, we have different phases. It's a competitive procedure in phases that go throughout the innovation cycle. That is first the phase 0, that's curiosity-driven research, and then we have phase 1, the solution design with multiple suppliers that could pass to the next phase if they are successful in presenting this design. We have phase 2, that is the prototype development, also with suppliers competing in this prototype development, and those who are successful in this phase go to phase 3, which is the development and the testing of a limited volume of products and services. So this is the R&D cycle, solution design, prototype development, and the testing of these solutions. Public procurement of innovative solutions occur when the deployment of commercial volumes of end products occur. So the adoption and the wide diffusion of newly developed solutions. So we have these two complementary procurement procedures that could be used separately and also could be used as follow on the pre-commercial procurement in order to acquire solutions that have been developed in the research and development phase, opening up again a new procedure for competitive possibilities. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next question is, are you familiar with pre-commercial procurement? Have you had any experience with it, or do you know only the main concepts, or you don't really know about innovation procurement? So let's see, and we go to the next question. I'm going to share my screen quickly. You have the QR code there, and just to see, okay, somebody knows the main concepts of innovation of pre-commercial procurement. Let's see if there are other voters to see. Okay. Okay, somebody does not know. Very good. Yeah. All right. So let's explain a little bit more about pre-commercial procurement. And yeah, okay. Yes, some of you already know some main concepts. Great, great to know. Okay, Valentina, so I'm going to stop sharing now so we can continue. but I see that nobody has actual experience with it. So what is very important to know is how these procurement procedures, and especially pre-commercial procurement, relates to the technology readiness levels. So we use pre-commercial procurement when there is the need for research and development, because those, after a good market analysis and intellectual property research, state-of-the-art analysis, we understand that some solutions that could address our needs are at lower TRL levels. That means between TRL 3 and TRL, pre-commercial procurement would cover TRL 3 until TRL 8. So from the experimental proof of concept until the system that is complete and qualified. If the solutions are at higher TRL levels, we can use the approach of public procurement of innovative solutions. That means that the solutions are closer to the market, that we can buy these solutions, and there's less R&D needed. Perhaps you need to test or do conformance testing of these solutions. Pre-commercial procurement, as you may know, for those who know the main concepts, is outside the scope of the public procurement directives. There are some main let's say, guidance provided in the communication of 2007. And we know that it's a competitive phase in a competitive procedure in phases, and that we mostly leave the intellectual property rights in the contractor so that they exploit the results of the pre-commercial procurement. So let's go to the next slide. So these are some of the main concepts on pre-commercial procurement. And let's go to the EAFIP step-by-step methodology. We will concentrate on this. You see here some of the steps in the innovation procurement process, but we will go, because of the time, to the next slide to focus on the main 5 steps that is going to help us prepare the procurement. This is before the tender. So this is very important because these steps will really let us know which trajectory can we follow. So these 5 steps are the needs identification and assessment. So we see what the problems are and the type of requirements that you have. Based on this assessment, we conduct a prior art analysis and IPR search, which is to know the state of the art and to know, have a mapping of possible suppliers, of possible contenders. There's also an analysis of the standards landscape to understand the degree of consensus. And with these findings, we go to the market consultation to challenge our findings, to see what the market can offer based on the needs the public procurers have, and we let them know the ambition setup of the procurement. With the results of the market consultation, we do our value calculations and we decide on the trajectory that we can follow, whether this is a PCP or a PPI, based on the technology readiness levels of the solutions. Next slide, please. And we will go into the steps quickly. So the needs identification and assessment, that's fundamental because this is where you start identifying which is the unmet need. And this is an advantage because it is going to give you the possibility to formulate the requirements and mostly based in functional requirements. You need to allow some time to understand the need, to create the right basis to start the state-of-the-art analysis. You need to ensure some proper information from the market and avoid the risk of unidentified unmet needs turning into urgent problems. So you need to look ahead for the future. What is very important is in this step, you want to have outcome-based requirements. Next slide, please. We're going very few minutes, but so yeah, I already have my timer, so I will perhaps go very quickly. Valentina, if I give a little bit, 1 minute more.
No worries.
Because we started a little later. But how do we identify and assess the needs? There are several techniques, several methods, but you can start with the discussions internally with the relevant stakeholders. So you can have internal meetings, informal chats, workshops, discussions in focus groups, on surveys on the customer, so the voice of the user. Next slide, please. So that is very important that you involve the users in this. In the second step, we have the prior art analysis and the IPR search. So that's what we call the state-of-the-art analysis, the complementary or complementarity of these two analysis and search. So the prior art analysis consists in looking at all the information that is currently available in the public domain, whether these are scientific publications, reports, existing products, IPR protected or not. This is a desk research of what is out there. This is done when the needs are already identified, and we do this to validate the identified needs to see whether there are solutions out there that can respond to our needs or whether there are no solutions out there, and we need to validate that there's room for innovation, that we can actually do a pre-commercial procurement, for example, because there is some novelty in what we want to create. And the IPR search that complements the prior art analysis is a search that is focused on registered intellectual property held in national or international databases. And of course, this is done also when the needs are already identified, but it helps us guarantee that the technological solutions to be developed are innovative and can thus be protected by IPR, this novelty, in order to be able to have grounds, for example, for research and development procurement procedures. Alternative, it could also reveal that there is one provider who owns the IPRs or several, and this also helps us to have an IPR strategy. So next slide, please. So why do we do, yeah. So here you have, we do the state-of-the-art analysis in order to understand the technology readiness levels of the solutions. One thing could be that we find a lot of products, services, and standards that would mean that the technology readiness levels is higher, but we have patents already, and no standards could have a technology readiness level at medium-high technology readiness levels. If we have only publications and research, that could show us perhaps that the technology readiness levels are lower. So we can have these interpretations of the information that we found, and we need to verify this in the market consultation to know whether we have the need for radical innovation or incremental innovations, or whether we can buy actually off-the-shelf products to satisfy the need. Next slide, please. So we go, and this is why we do an IPR search. This is very important because it helps us identify the technological solutions, but also avoid IPR infringement, and also helps us identify possible candidates for innovation procurement, help us map who are the owners of IPR rights and intellectual property rights, and we can also invite them for the market consultation. So another thing that is important in the search of IPRs is whether these patents, for example, are located in a specific geographical area. Let's say, for example, there are not patents of such a solution in Europe, but there are patents in China and the United States, but there's still novelty for innovative solutions in Europe. Next slide, please. So we're almost about to. So how do you conduct an IPR search? We normally do formulate use cases and define keywords and do patent searches using tools. We can look into the patent classification searches as well. And then we look into the patent abstracts and the patent claims that help us understand what is the type of solution and what is, for example, the scope of exclusivity of that solution in the patent claims. Next slide, please. So we can have several findings on the IPR search. We can find that there are many patents, no patents, or that is one owner of the patent of that solution, and we can have different courses of actions in that regard. When we find that there are no patents, no standards, that could mean that there's a lot of room for innovation, and that's a room also for us to have grounds for a PCP. Next slide, please. So we have here just a small example. We use sometimes the IPlytics tool. That's intelligent platform that allows us to identify standards and patents. And here we have a search of millimetric waves camera that we use as a search for a project. And we see that we have the geographical overview of where we can find patents, but we also have an analysis of the technological relevance and the market coverage, just as an example. Then we can identify the solutions, the owners of the patents of these solutions and where they're located. Next slide, please. Almost finishing. So here's a little bit of information of IPlytics, but we will pass it because it provides a lot of, let's say, information that gathers from different data repositories, but it is worldwide. Next slide, please. Okay, so then is the step 3, and we're just going very quickly to the steps. We need to know what standards are they. So these are standards are documents that set requirements on a specific product, system of services, and yeah, this could give a good idea for procurers so that they are aware of the kind of relevant standards that they need to take into account, whether they're labels or certifications. And yeah, it is interesting also to verify this later on in the market consultation. Next slide, please. So why is important to understand, and what are the advantages of standardization in public procurement? It could be that as a result of a PCP, procurers also want to have a new standard set because there are new solutions, the new ways in which things need to be done, new process. So these standards enable interoperability, compatibility. It can give also minimum requirements that can help the procurer assess the requests and the proposals based on these standards and these performances. And when we use standards, you also lower the cost of certain products. You also have a good way in which you can aggregate the public demand, because if there's a level of standardization, different procurers can procure these solutions instead of doing it individually. Next slide, please. Almost finishing. Then we go to the open market consultations. I'm sorry for the time, but the open market consultation is fundamental because it helps us understand what the market can offer based on what we tell the market. It clarifies what the desired solution needs to achieve. There are several ways in which we can have a market consultation. At European level, we always have a prior information notice that is published on TED to have this wide European outreach. And next slide, please. We normally use several means for the market consultation, which are, for example, using a request for information through a questionnaire. We can use the EU survey tool, that is an open tool from the European Commission, can help us elaborate questionnaires. We can have also face-to-face events. And yeah, these are key aspects of an open market consultation that we need to take into account: how we communicate, how we mention that we want an innovative outcome, and the planning that we have for the procurement procedure, the type of regulatory conditions that we include in the contract. And what is most important is that we need to comply with the principles of the Treaty on the Functional European Union, that is transparency, equal treatment, non-discrimination, proportionality, competition. And then we go to the next slide, please, Valentina. And we have the business case calculation. I think I don't have any more time for this, but the business case is a tool that helps you support the investment decisions during, before, during, and after the project. And we do a cost-benefit analysis, and also we can have insights into what is valuable for the project, analyzing the scenarios of not doing anything, the best scenario of starting an innovation, or we analyze all these scenarios to gain insights of the project. Next slide, please, Valentina. I just have an example, and with this I would finish. This is the business case of the Transport for London. So what we have is we start with some target objectives, and in their case, they needed to change certain lighting systems and to replace them. And they did an analysis of what was possible and where were the costs and where the benefits. And next, Valentina. So they did an analysis of the capital cost, the operational expenses, the operational maintenance, and they define a benchmark, and then they compare. No, you can go to the next. It's okay, Valentina. So because we have to pass it, and we compare to the they define a benchmark that is on the right hand on, and then compare several solutions that looking at the market analysis. And to see which solutions passed or not didn't pass the assessment evaluated across or against this benchmark. The next slide, please. And we will finish, sorry. So to summarize the procedure in this case study, there was a need identified, the baseline was calculated, the cost-benefit analysis of the new solution was taken into account. There was a market consultation to verify that, and after the market consultation, another cost-benefits analysis was conducted, and then based on this, there was an award of the best solutions once the procurement was already open. So from the market consultation that they participated 70 and suppliers with 3,000 products. Later on, only 30 suppliers and 170 products went to the public procurement, and the award of the contract was for 13 suppliers, and the framework agreements with 45 products. So here you can see the summary of the different steps and the results and the importance of the business case and this cost-benefit analysis, also based on what were the findings of the market consultation. Thank you, Valentina, and I'm very sorry because I really go into the conclusions that they're very, very fast. That innovation procurement has these two modalities, PCP and PPI. We need to understand when to apply them based on the technology readiness levels. It is very important that you do a market analysis to verify what is out there in the market and what intellectual property rights are there. And the EAFIP methodology can help you with these steps in order to have more success in innovation procurement following this methodology. Thank you very much. So I use a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ana Lucia. It was wonderful to hear this interesting, very informative presentation. Just for you all, the presentation will be shared, the slides will be shared on the Protect CMP platform. So just would like to encourage you to register and to look in and to see it, because it's very interesting. So now I would like to take over the floor. Just Ana Lucia, could you please check if there are any questions in the chat or raised hands?
No, I don't see any questions now.
Not yet. If you have any, just put it in the chat or raise your hand. This presentation will be about practical examples on innovation procurement of climate services and pre-commercial procurement as well. So Haarlem is part of the Metropolis region of Amsterdam, and Metropolis region of Amsterdam consists 35 organizations, of which 32 cities and towns around Amsterdam, 2 provinces and 1 transport company. And together with the Metropolis region of Amsterdam, we developed basic security levels, and Haarlem is coordinating municipality on climate change and mitigation, specifically for buildings. So we define 4 basic climate adaptation security levels. It's water overflow, for example, due to heavy rainfalls. Secondly, droughts. It could water shortage. Drought could be also be in the winter. Thirdly, heat because of the very high temperature, and flood, for example, sea or river floods. And we also include nature, inclusiveness, and biodiversity. So how does it work? So you have, if you have new buildings, in the metropolitan region of Amsterdam, we think that it's very important to have resilience by design. So between the new buildings, we create so-called green-blue corridors. Green because of trees and plants, and blue because of water. We create in this also kind of extra ventilation and shading, and it can reduce latent heating and sensible temperatures. And because of this blue corridors and overshadowed green corridors as well, the air is cooling down, bypasses this surface of water, and it can reach deeper into urban areas and cool it down as well. So not only in this area, but also it goes deeper. Another thing, the ground can be elevated, and through this elevation of the ground, for example, by heavy rainfalls, the water flow will be transferred to the storage area, buffer zones, or flow toward to filtration. So how does it look like? And the procuring climate services, we would like to support systemic climate actions. So just give you few simple example to understand, okay, what is it about? So for example, for water overflow due to heavy rainfalls, we could use climate adaptive design, water barriers. So I hope you can see it on the slide. So through these water barriers, the houses and urban area is protected, can be protected from water, so-called wadis. I will tell you about it in the next slide, or elevate or raise a building. And the picture on the right side is made in Amsterdam a few years ago through the rainy, heavy rainfall. Even the trams had difficulty to move forward. So the so-called wadi could be also used also for droughts. So on the left side, you see a kind of a picture painted. How does it this principle works? It's actually quite simple and very quite cheap to realize. Between buildings on the right side, you see it. How does it look in real life? So it's kind of sponge. During the heavy rainfalls, it absorbs water, and during the drought periods, it gives humidity away. So another things you could do, it will help you by water shortage or by droughts, is use rain barrels to collect rainwater to flush toilet, for example, or just for more green, to keep it green in the city. Oh, I'm sorry, just yes. Heat through high temperature. For examples, you can do isolation using isolation between the walls, or isolation inside your house, this isolation folies, or more trees to to create shadow for the buildings and for walking areas, green roofs, green walls, also a few other examples. And we also developed for every of the basic level climate change levels. We also developed KPIs and just give you an overview or just indication how does it work. So, for example, for regarding the shadows, it has to be at least 30% shade for major slow traffic routes and during the highest sun position in the summer. So you can calculate it if you design or redesign your urban area. For cool places, we say minimum 200 square meters within the walking distance, and walking distance is 300 meters should be present. The roofs, at least 50% of all the roofs has to be heat resistant or cooling equipped, and it will cool down urban area. Vital and vulnerable functions must be able to withstand heat. I will tell you what is the definition of vital of vulnerable, or some examples in the next slide. And also indoor temperatures, so homes for people, for the quality of life, do not get too hot during the summers or warm period. It's so they has to be lower than 27 degrees Celsius, and cooling does not lead to overheating of immediate vicinity. So some lessons learned. Anna Lucia gave a wonderful presentation about the pre-commercial procurement, how does it works in practice, and we see this method works really very well by procuring climate services. And we see also new products, innovations are able to solve challenges and problems we are as a cities are dealing with, and the relatively low procurement investment can bring new innovations into the market. And I just promised you to give few examples what we understand under vital and vulnerable functions. This is energy, telecom, ICT. We cannot without our smartphones and internet connections. It's very vital. Water chain, drinking and wastewater, health, of course, chemistry, pumping stations. In the Netherlands, we are below the sea, as you know. So we really, the pumping stations are crucial for us because they pump water away, so we stay dry in the Netherlands, even below the sea level. And the main infrastructure, it depends on town or city or area where you are. What is the main infrastructure? Okay, and see. Oh. So just the few recommendations, and we have a few minutes left for this webinar. So limit the scope of research and development because it helps you also help research and development to focus on certain solutions, certain challenges. And research and development covers activities like design, prototyping, and so on. Share risk benefit with industry, because if you as a public authorities ask for innovation, it's that the intellectual property is a thing. So if you would, it could brings you as a market party a lot of benefits, but it can also implicit some risks. So its recommendation would be to share risk and benefit with between public authority as a asking party and the industry market parties as a developing innovation, because it's also very important for market parties to survive if they have this intellectual property on the innovation, because they can sell it again and again. And if you say as a public authority, I will keep it for myself, so it will not make sense for market parties. So they will probably not not make any sense for them. And the pre-commercial procurement excludes state aid. Sounds maybe very logical, but very important to ensure competition, transparency, openness, fairness, and pricing and market conditions. So I will stop sharing, and we have just a few minutes left, just in case some of you have questions to all of us, or to Joseph or Anna-Lucia, or to myself. So just would like to encourage you to ask your question. So just raise your hand or type in the chat.
Yes, Valentina, I see there's a question from Tom about the limit of the procurement tender value, and it depends on the countries. And I made a reply on the chat, but perhaps Tom can explain a little bit more what he refers to.
Yes, I was just wondering whether there were like some legal rule about the maximum value of the procurement of the innovation. So yeah, that was mainly my question.
Yeah, in general terms, there's not a limit of value. I reply on the chat that it would depend on a case-by-case basis. You establish what is the value. If you understand the value on the amount of the budget for the project, that's what you mean. Yeah, so it would depend. It would depend also whether these are services, works, and I mentioned that you have also possibility of this above the thresholds. Above the threshold, you apply the regulations at European level. But it is on a case-by-case basis that you define what is the value of your project. If you're thinking about pre-commercial procurement and we look into some of the European projects, you see that, depend on the complexity of the R&D that is needed. We have projects above the millions for R&D only.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is on a case-by-case basis that we define this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your interesting question, Tom. Somebody else? Just take the chance, because we have a few last minutes. Okay. Eva, do you have any questions, or somebody else?
If I can, maybe just to add one more thing to the limits. If the limits are connected with the established price of the contract, estimated price of the contract, then in a PCP, the PCP is basically excluded from the European directives, right? So I don't think there is actually the limit as in comparison with the tenders that are done within the directives. So there would be in the PCP, there would be no limit. Am I right?
Yeah, and I'm thinking also when we are preparing a PCP, and you of course look into what are the solutions out there, what are the needs, you establish a baseline in order to define the estimated values, the estimated amounts that you're going to allocate to that contract. So it requires this analysis and this business case that we were mentioning. So for example, how much you define your use case and you say, okay, how much it costs me to deliver these services or to do this specific this service or to provide this public service or do this activity at the moment, how much is the cost of that? And you say, okay, if I want to invest this in R&D, you will see what is your return of investment in time, how much is this going to solve the problem that you have at the moment. For example, we have one case, is a European project in which they need to monitor unattended items, and at the moment they cannot do it automatically, and it takes a lot of costs when you have some threats, let's say, left baggage in public transportation for the areas, in public transportation areas, and they need, for example, to close the area, to delay the trains, and these are a lot of costs. So if you can have and invest in a solution that is going to reduce this cost, you calculate, let's say, the basis of the amount of the investment that you want to do. So it also depends on the budgets of the procurers, or in European projects, on also the possibility of accessing to grants.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Ana Lucia. I would like to thank Joseph, to thank Ana Lucia, and thank Melissa and her team, and all participants to joining us today. It was a wonderful to see you all today. Thank you very much. Wishing you a wonderful day. And Melissa will stop recording in a few seconds. Wishing you all the best, and hoping to see you in our Protect other webinars organized in the upcoming period. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valentina. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
goodbye.
Bye.